Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Showing Up to Your Life podcast and YouTube channel. My name is Art Burns, and I'm really excited to be here with you today, as I am every day. And, as I've told you before, this is something that comes directly from my heart. This is not some, tagline to a intro to my videos here. I really do mean it. I get really excited to do these. And the excitement, as I've told you, is something that flows from the enthusiasm, right? Which enthusiasm kind of comes from the same place as curiosity, as we talked about yesterday. And so I'm just showing you how I'm practicing what I'm preaching here, and it's very possible to kind of, initiate the positive excitement of of excitement and also enthusiasm. It's possible to conjure that, to make it happen intentionally, right? The same way that it's very possible to cultivate positive thoughts and emotions, and it's very important to do so. And so we're going to get into that a little bit more today. But before we go into that further, so last night, as you may or may not know or remember, every Wednesday night I lead a guided meditation. Right, it's usually a group, anywhere from like 6 people to I think we've had like 15 people in the group. At any given time. It's a really amazing thing that happens, because not only do we do this meditation, which is, awesome to do a meditation with other people. I mean, there's something really magical that happens when you're sharing this time with a group of people. You know that there's this group of like-minded people who are doing this same practice as you. Something really amazing happens when you do that, right? But what also happens that is equally as amazing is the fact that, the discussion that happens after the meditation is truly, I mean, it is moving. It is really amazing. And so last night, we had another amazing meeting, and I'd be more than happy for you to check it out. We actually record the meetings, and they get posted to our podcast. So you can go check that out if you want. But yeah, it's an amazing thing. And last night, something. It was in stark detail, right? Now most of the people that are in our group are local to the area of Denver and Colorado. And of course, what this means is that what happened this week is something that really impacts us. Like people who were on the call last night, have friends and family who go to that supermarket where the person murdered 10 people, the other day. And so this is something that's really alive for us here, and it might be alive for you too. Even if you don't live in the Colorado area, it's something that, this could have been a supermarket in any state of America, and that's one of the things that happens when we experience something like this. We go into a very, a fearful place, right? Where we think like, there's no place that's safe, right? And in these times, we tend to lose our sense of logic, right? Like knowing that, like after something like this happens, for instance, we have this tendency to think like every supermarket is a death trap, right? But the fact is that, if we look at it rationally, in our sober, sort of problem solving mind, we realize that actually, there's many, many more times that people go into a supermarket or a Home Depot or a movie theater or even a school. There's many, many more times that people go into these places and don't experience gun violence than there are that do. But when it happens, it shakes us so much that we come to this sort of assumption that this is likely to happen again, and it's likely to happen to me next time, right? And so this is a really powerful aspect of the way our brains work, and it actually going to tie directly into what we're going to talk about in a few minutes here. But I wanted to offer something for you. If you're experiencing a lot of really difficult and strong emotions this week, because of what you're reading on the news, or listening to on the news, right? If it's, between what happened in Atlanta, Georgia, or what happened in Boulder, Colorado, all within the span of 1 week, even a couple of days, actually. If you're struggling with this and you're having a hard time, I have some practices that can help. Right. And it's not necessarily to get to the point, I mean, I have practices that will help you to the point of learning how to, how to deal with the anger that you're feeling, right? And to maybe transform that anger into something that's productive, right? So the feeling of anger, the emotion of anger that we might feel towards, what happened, can be a great motivator. Right. I mean, that's what anger is. It's the ultimate motivator, and so you can, use that to your advantage, and to actually, take action to actually contribute to this, so all of that is possible too. But what I'm talking about is really just, just being able to sit with this grief that you're feeling, and this fear that you're feeling, and this hurt that you're feeling, right? So it's not even about necessarily the forgiveness or the compassion or anything like that. We can get into that later, right? Like, that's not maybe the thing for right now, right? But right now, the thing is to be okay with the feelings that you're feeling, and to understand the feelings that you're feeling, and to process the feelings that you're feeling in a healthy and constructive way. And if you're having trouble with that, if you're struggling, I'm asking you to reach out to me, okay? Because I have some techniques that will help. And they're free. I'm not, it's not something where I'm looking to, land a client here. I'm happy to give you these practices for absolutely nothing. Okay, no quid pro quo of any kind. And it would be my honor, seriously. So if you're struggling with this week, or at any given time, if this is something that you're having a hard time with, maybe you're not sleeping so well, maybe you're finding yourself in a really difficult mood, and you're snapping at people, and you're having a hard time, maintaining your cool or regulating yourself on any kind of level. If that's what you're feeling right now, then do reach out and talk to me. Okay, I'm not a therapist, and I'm not going to go deep into the reasons why this is happening to you, and all that. But what I can do is I can give you some concrete, very simple practices that you can do, starting right now, to help you to deal with it. Right, because that's what we're looking at. We're looking at getting through this in a way that is sensible, that is constructive, that is healthy, and that can enable you to live your life in spite of what's happening. Because sadly, this isn't the last time we're going to see something like this happen, right? And that's a tragedy, and that's something that I'll be happy to listen to you and talk to you about that, because that's something else that we have to process, right? We have to process the fact that this is, as horrible and wrenching as this stuff is, it's, again, it's that fear that we have that it's going to happen again. And as we're going to segue into our topic today, this fear often becomes irrationally identified, right? Where we feel like, not only is this kind of thing going to happen again, but we're also sure that this kind of thing is going to happen to me or one of my loved ones. Right. And that can become a very paralyzing thought, right? Because, it's the grocery store, right? We all need to go get food, right? It's not a movie theater, right? Where we can avoid going to a movie theater. Right. We can even, to a certain extent, avoid going to Home Depot. Right. We can go to a little hardware store instead. Right. We can order stuff online and have it delivered to us instead of going to these stores. Right. But a grocery store, I mean, sure, there are online options. There's Instacart and all these other things out here in Denver. We have a place called Go Puff. It's open all night long, so there's plenty of options, to avoid it. But that's not healthy, right? To think that you're never going to go to the grocery store again, you're never going to be able to feel your own avocado to see if it's right for you. This is something that we shouldn't force ourselves into, that kind of restriction, right? Because that's not living. right? But that's the fear that happens, right? Even though it's irrational, that's what happens, and it happens to all of us. It happens to me, right? Like all of a sudden the association, right? The name of the supermarket, for all of you who are not in this area, the name of the supermarket is called King Supers, that happen, right? And this is all over the place out here, right? There's like, like I grew up back east, and back east we had like the A&P or the Food Emporium, right? Same thing out here, right? King Supers is the A&P for out here in Colorado, right? They are everywhere, right? In every neighborhood there's a King Supers, right? But of course, initially, right, I was like, oh my gosh, can I possibly go to King Supers, because I'm afraid, right? And that's the thought that comes into mind, right? But even though this King Supers that I go to is literally 25 miles away from that King Supers, right? And of course, there is no association, right? It's not a brand name thing that happened here. It was specific to that specific place in Boulder, right? So there's no reason to believe that another King Supers would be any less safe today than it was a week ago. But that's the way our mind works, right? And so that brings us in a beautiful segue to the topic that I wanted to cover today, right? That really does tie into everything that we've been talking about, with the sort of automatic qualities of what we've been talking about these last couple of days, right? And so what we're talking about here is automatic negative thoughts. And thank you to a brilliant psychologist named Aaron Beck, who I think in like the late 70s, early 80s, kind of came up with this concept, and he named them automatic negative thoughts, which turned into the most amazing acronym ever, right? So it's ANTS, right? ANTS, right? And so it's like ants in your mind, right? Which is kind of cool, I think. But anyway, automatic negative thoughts are basically what they sound like, and they're very similar to, or very closely tied, I should say, to the negativity bias, right? The negativity bias is a little different in the sense that the negativity bias is something that impacts all of us on an unconscious level, right? It's sort of, as the human defense mechanism, right, is to have a negativity bias, right? Which is to say that we're going to notice the negative aspects of our experiences, right? Our mind is going to filter out the neutral and the positive experiences, and it's going to highlight the negative experiences of our life, because the negative experiences are the ones that we got to watch out for, right? The negative experiences are the things that are going to cause us emotional, physical, and mental pain and damage, right? So therefore, our mind has this natural tendency to filter out what we're seeing and notice the bad things that happen, right? So for instance, you could go through a day that you had, a couple of really good things happen, right? Like one or two really good things happen, but you had one thing that was bad, right? Like you saw somebody have a fist fight, or you missed a bus, or you got a flat tire or something like that. Well, that one negative thing is going to overshadow all of the positive things in your mind, right? And so that's the negativity bias, but automatic thoughts are a more personalized kind of version of that, right? So first of all, let's talk about automatic thoughts in general, right? Psychologists and neuroscientists will tell you that you think every day the average human has 65,000 or more thoughts every single day. Right. So, I mean, that's a lot, right? 65,000. And that's the average. So some people have much more than that, right? And so out of these 65,000 or so thoughts every day that we have as human beings, it's estimated or shown to be true that about 95% of those thoughts are completely automatic. Right. And now there's a reason for that, right? And this is something I talk about here a lot, but this is really worth understanding, right? Because, if you're having 65,000 thoughts, could you imagine if you had to sit and ponder 65,000 thoughts every day? There's no way you could function in your life, right? There's no way you would never be able to stop thinking about your thoughts, right? There's no way, because it would take that much time, right? Like, even if it was 1 second each, I mean, I think we have something like, I think the math turns out to like 80,000, 86,000 thoughts, 86,000 seconds rather per day, or 82,000 seconds. Y'all can do the math. It's pretty easy, right? Maybe I'll do it. I'll put it in the description here. I didn't think ahead of time to do the math, and I'm not going to try to do it right now. But the point is, though, right, that even if we spent 1 second on every thought, we're just about done, right? Like, that's literally almost our entire day. 1 second per thought. Right. So you don't even have time to do that. Right. And so that's why the mind creates a very automated process here. Right. Like, and it's, and that's why you get through your day. Right. Now, involved in this is something we call schema. Right. So when you look at a table, the shape of a table, right, a flat top with four legs sticking down, in like thousandths of a second, your mind identifies that as a table. You don't have to sit and think like, wonder what that thing is, right? It's this sort of catalog of understandings of the world around you. This is something we call the schema, right? That you understand your world in this way, so you don't have to think about every single thing that you see, right? So it kind of ties into that, the whole automatic thought process, right? But here's the thing, right? And this is where it's very, again, closely related to the negativity bias, right? That we are more likely to notice the negative aspects, right? Well, in the same way, you're more likely to have negative automatic thoughts than you are positive automatic thoughts. But now here's the thing that becomes a little different from the negativity bias, right? The negativity bias is almost like, you can almost think of it like the tide, right? The tide lifts all boats evenly, right? Like, that's it's globally the tide is happening, right? But automatic negative thoughts would be like, if when you're a kid at the beach and you dig a little trench so you get some of the water into your own little pool, right? Well, that pool, how high and low that gets for you is going to be more like that. That's more akin to your automatic negative thoughts. And let me explain that to make it really easy, right? So if you are a person who is struggling with depression, for instance, right, then that depression is going to color your automatic thoughts, in the sense that you are going to have more of those automatic negative thoughts because of the depression than somebody else might have. If somebody's feeling a little bit more, balanced in their emotional, psychiatric way, right? Or psychological way, I should say. Or like what we're talking about now, right? Like if you happen to live in the Denver or Boulder, Colorado area, right, you're going to have a deeper impact of this thing that just happened, right? You're likely to have more thoughts of safety, or the lack of safety, than somebody who's in an area of the world who's never had a mass shooting in it, in as much as, if there are any of those available, if there are any of those around anymore, right? I mean, I feel like this is something that's touched almost every single community, right? And again, now we could take that a step further, right? That if you do live in a community that once did have a mass shooting, and you see something like this on the news, well, then you're going to be triggered in a way that somebody else would not have, right? And this also ties into the automatic negative thoughts. And you're more likely to kind of have a sense like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen again. It's going to happen to me, right? And so the automatic nature of this, right, suggests an unconscious nature, right? And that's the key, right? It's not about, you're never going to be able to think, consciously every single thought, right? There's no time for that, as I explained a few minutes ago, right? Like, I think you have like 80 something thousand seconds every day, and potentially 80,000 thoughts every day. So literally 1 second each, and you're already out of time, right? So you're never going to change that, right? That's not the objective here. But the objective, as with everything else that I talk about here, is to bring awareness to these negative thoughts, right? And so to understand how the unconscious pattern-based behavior of your mind is creating these thoughts, right? And that allows you to disidentify with them. And then you can look at it objectively and say something like, wow, isn't this incredible how my mind is making me afraid to walk into this King Super supermarket that is 25 miles away from where this horrible thing happened a few days ago, right? And so when we can look at it objectively and in a non-identified way, a disidentified way, then we can we break ourselves free from it, right? And we then become more in control over the emotional fallout from this, right? Because remember, as I've talked about here quite often, the thoughts and the emotions, along with the physical sensations of our body, these things exist in a cyclical way, right? An informing and a feedback loop kind of sense, right? Which means that when you have one of these automatic negative thoughts, right, of saying like, oh, well, this, it's more likely to happen again because, at another King Supers, like that kind of thing, right? As soon as you have that automatic thought, that is going to create an emotion, right? Chemically, right? It creates this thing that becomes an emotion in your body. Right now, that emotion creates a physical sensation in your body, right? So the emotion of fear, right? Like, when I'm walking across the parking lot towards King Supers, and I'm thinking these automatic negative thoughts about how this could happen to me right now, right? That when I think that, now I have an emotion of fear, right? And that fear, maybe it's in my chest, maybe it's in my stomach, maybe it's in my throat, maybe I start, I can't swallow all of a sudden, my throat feels constricted, right? Well, now that feeling in my body is going to send a signal, like my brain picks up on that, right? And that comes through remember the vagus nerve we talked about, right? So now that sensation comes back to my body via that nervous system, right? Back into my brain here, and it influences me to have another automatic negative thought, which then produces a stronger emotion of fear or some subsequent emotion from fear, and then another sensation in my body, another negative thought, another emotion, another sensation, another thought, another emotion, another sensation, and to the point where even walking across a parking lot, by the time I get to that door, I could be in a crippled state from all of this. Right. And so when we can bring an objective awareness, a disidentified awareness to this whole process, right? And we can sit here and say, my mind is having these automatic negative thoughts, and my body is experiencing this emotion of fear or anger or grief or whatever it is. Well, again, now I'm stepping back from it. And now I have a chance to say, okay, well, what if I can challenge this thought? Right? Like, what if can I use my thinking part of my brain now to challenge these thoughts, to question, to say, well, what if I'm wrong? What if the exact opposite of what I think is really true? Right. And now just doing that, and I talk to a lot of my clients about this, and just naming the couple of questions, right, of saying like, am I seeing this for what it really is, or am I being impacted by these automatic negative thoughts, right? Like, do I have all the information here, or am I filling in the blanks with my mind through the automatic thought process? Right. And and if I am, well, then what if all of the thoughts that I have about this are exactly opposite to the truth and the reality, right? So when I go through this with the people with whom I'm lucky enough to work with, who I can't help but calling clients, but I wish I had a different word for, you know, just asking those questions, just in our meeting, they say, "Wow, those questions made my brain feel good." Right? Because that's what happens, right? You're challenging this, and the minute you're challenging it, you're taking a step back. And in taking that step back, it feels opening. It feels, the potential, the optimistic potential comes back into your mind. And that starts to feel really good. And in that really good feeling, now we can start to question some of these things. It doesn't mean that we're not still going to struggle. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't struggle. I mean, that's also part of the awareness, is to know that this is an appropriate time to feel grief and to feel maybe even some anger. And whatever those feelings are, they're appropriate, and letting them in, right? But again, letting them in a way that we know that these emotions that I'm feeling are impacting my thoughts. And so therefore, don't believe the thoughts, right? Let them happen. Don't try to stop them, because that's not going to work either. But let them happen in a way that is disidentified, so that we don't feel like the thoughts are definitely true, right? Because they're not. Right? They are automatic, and they are negative, in a biased way. And that alone tells us that they don't necessarily reflect the reality. They reflect the reality that I'm living, right? They reflect my emotional reality, but they do not represent an unbiased, objective reality, which is what reality really is, right? And so that's how we can kind of, reframe what we're going through. And I have some great practices to do this. Actually, in the meditation last night, this is what I worked on for specifically this reason. And so if you're interested, I can totally send you this practice, right? And if you need help, you need help in coaching and stuff, we can talk about that, of course. But I'm happy to share this with you for absolutely nothing, just because it's the right thing to do. So because it's a tool that I have that I know will work, and if you're struggling, I want to give this to you so it'll work for you. Okay? So before we go, real quick, I wanted to give you a couple of examples of some common automatic negative thoughts, right? Sort of categorized, and so that you can recognize it, right? You can recognize when, oh, wait, maybe this is automatic negative thoughts happening right now. And again, the minute you challenge it and say, are these automatic thoughts? Again, asking those questions. Do I really have all the information? Am I seeing this for what it really is? And what if my thoughts are automatic and negative, and they're doing this just because? And what if everything is opposite, right, to the truth? Everything I think about this is actually opposite to the truth. What if? And just asking that question automatically gives us a little bit of space in between ourselves and these thoughts. All right. So anyway, if you want to try to, recognize some of these, well, here's a short list of sort of the common automatic negative thoughts, the common ants that run around inside our brains, right? So the first is like a black and white sort of all or nothing concept, right? Like, no, if it doesn't happen this way, it's not possible. It can't happen at all. Right, it's part of the rigidity we've talked about before too, right? So that's a definite sign of automatic negative thoughts. Another sign of automatic negative thoughts is catastrophizing, right? Like taking something and just saying, like, oh, I heard somebody on a YouTube channel the other day, in a TED Talk rather, about mindfulness, said this. He said, oh, my son got a bad grade on his high school math exam, and my catastrophizing automatic thoughts went to, oh my gosh, he's gonna fail the year, he's gonna not get into college, he's going to not be able to get a job, and he's gonna be homeless. Right? Like, all within like the span of a couple of seconds, we can come up with that. That is catastrophizing, right? That is taking something and projecting it onto a much larger scale than anything is representative of reality, right? So if you find yourself doing that thing, that's a good sign that you're experiencing automatic negative thoughts. And what you do in this case, when you realize that you're experiencing these automatic thoughts, ask those questions, right? Is this really what's going on? Am I seeing it for really what it is? And what if the exact opposite of what I believe to be true? Like, what if my son, just because he failed this math test, I mean, there's like Elon Musk never finished college, right? Like the richest people in the world, some of them never even went to college. Right. I think Bill Gates, right? Like he, and Steve Jobs, right? These people changed the world, and they never went to college. So the exact opposite could be true, right? So again, going on our list, over identification or personalization, right? Thinking that everything is my fault, right? Like this, this thing's going to happen and it's all my fault. Right, like it's my fault that thing happened in King Supers, right? If I had went to that store instead of this store, this wouldn't have happened, right? That kind of stuff, right? That's over identifying. It's a sign of automatic negative thoughts. Perfectionism, right? Perfectionism is another one. Magical thinking, which kind of goes back to the example that I just used with over identification, right? Magical thinking, like if I, if I go to King Supers, it's definitely something like this is definitely going to happen again, right? Because it's me. And I have this influence over the world, right? Like this magical concept that you influence, everything that happens in the world, right? You don't, right? And neither do I. Right? Everybody's got free will. Things happen. Your belief system is your belief system. I'm not trying to challenge that. Like if you believe there is a higher power that's orchestrating all this, well then fine, go for it. That's wonderful. So maybe in that case, coincidentally, maybe you're right. Maybe you do impact this thing, but again, that's something that you can challenge, right? As a thing of reality. And then finally on my list is pessimism. Right? If you find yourself overly pessimistic about things, and this is a common one, right? Like this is probably the most common actually between, they're all pretty common actually, but this might be by a hair, it might be the most common, right? So pessimism is something that, a lot of people engage in, but if you find yourself being pessimistic, ask yourself those questions again, right? Like, am I seeing this for what it really is? Is this really the reality that I'm seeing? Or am I making some of this up? Am I filling in some of the holes? And if that's the case, well, then what if the exact opposite, right? And with pessimism, a final question that you can ask yourself, which is really beneficial, and a lot of my clients benefit extraordinarily from this, is to ask yourself, a pessimist is always saying, okay, what's going to go wrong? When's the other shoe going to drop? When is everything going to fall apart, right? But an optimist, or even someone who's neutral, can ask a very simple question: what could possibly go right here? Or what if everything goes exactly the way it's supposed to and it's all fine in the end? Right? Just asking those questions, again, it opens up your mind to the positive potential. And that is something that is much better for you than those automatic negative thoughts, those little ants that are running around your brain all day, creating some havoc. All right, so folks, there's a little practice for you. Just those questions. It's a great way to combat this, to disidentify, to take a step back and challenge these automatic thoughts, right? Just asking the questions. Do I have all the information? Am I seeing this for what it really is? What if the exact opposite to all that I'm thinking about is true here? And things like, what if things go right? What if everything goes right here? What's the best thing that could possibly happen? Right? These are ways to challenge the automatic negative thoughts. Now, to go a little deeper with this are some practices of awareness, right? Which come down to meditation and mindfulness practices, but there's also a really special one that I did last night. It's called RAIN. It's an acronym that goes recognition, acceptance, investigation, and non-identification. And I would love to share that with you if you're interested. So hit me up. Okay. 45-minute call is yours for the taking. Okay. While supplies last, while I'm able to do it. I'm actually going to I think I might restrict this to Saturdays and Sundays only. Like that's where we're getting, folks. So if you're looking to have this talk, do it soon. And yeah, but even if not, I would be happy to share with you in any way I can. So just get a hold of me, okay? Either book a call through the link in the description or send me an email, okay? Let's just get it going, okay? If you're not comfortable talking, it's okay, all right? I'll send you the written stuff and we'll just communicate via email, okay? There's no prerequisites here, right? There's nothing there's no exchange that needs to happen. I'm just looking to help. So if you think that you can use this help, if you would like to talk to me, then talk to me. If you would like just to get some practices with written instructions because you'd prefer not to talk to me, that's fine too. But either way, reach out. Okay? All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll be back again tomorrow, and I wish you well. Take care.